Imagine this. A mighty alien fleet, once feared across the stars, suddenly finds itself broken, stranded and helpless in the cold emptiness of space. These were not weak beings. They were conquerors, explorers, rulers of countless worlds. But now their ships drift in silence, their supplies run out, and their warriors slowly lose hope. The galaxy that once trembled at their power no longer even cares if they live or die. And in this moment of despair, when everything they knew seemed lost, an unexpected figure appears, not another alien empire, not a godlike power, but humans. The very species these aliens once ignored, underestimated, and dismissed as too young, too reckless, too fragile to matter. And yet it is humanity, the newcomers of the galaxy, that steps forward when no one else will. This story isn't about humanity's strength in war, or advanced technology, or vast numbers. It's about something else, something far more powerful. The human heart, the will to help others even when there's nothing to gain. And that choice, that simple act of compassion, will change not just the fate of the stranded alien fleet, but the entire galaxy. Today we dive into the incredible HFY story of how humans became the saviors no one expected. When an alien fleet was stranded, and humanity arrived to help. Far from their homeworlds, the alien fleet floated in silence. At first they had believed it was just a temporary setback. An engine failure here, a damaged supply line there. After all, they were a mighty empire, rulers of the stars. They had faced wars, rebellions, and even natural disasters before. But this time, things were different. Their ships were crippled, their fuel nearly gone, and their food supplies running dangerously low. What had once been a proud armada, a show of power that could intimidate entire civilizations, now looked like a graveyard of metal hulks drifting between the stars. The crews began to feel the weight of despair. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Once they spoke of rescue fleets or reinforcements, but no one came. No allies answered their calls. No empire reached out to help. The galaxy had abandoned them, and deep down, they began to realize the cruel truth. They were not as important as they believed. Starvation crept in. Sickness spread among the weaker, and once proud warriors argued bitterly over scraps of food. Commanders who once barked orders with confidence now whispered in fear, unsure how long they could keep their people alive. Imagine thousands of alien eyes staring out into endless space, knowing that each passing day could be their last. Their technology was useless without resources. Their pride meant nothing without survival. And in that endless silence of the void, one question haunted them all. Was this how their story would end? Not with a final glorious battle, but with slow, hopeless decay in the cold emptiness of space. Just when the alien fleet had begun to accept its slow death, something strange appeared on their scanners. At first they thought it was nothing more than debris drifting in the void, or perhaps scavengers coming to pick apart the remains of their broken ships. But then the signal grew stronger, clearer. It was not a massive warship, not a powerful empire's fleet. It was small, fragile-looking by comparison. Human ships. The aliens scoffed at first. Humanity was still considered a young race in the galaxy, barely stepping beyond their own star system. What could these small, insignificant creatures possibly do for a fleet of thousands stranded in the dark? Some alien commanders even laughed bitterly. Let them come, they said. Let them witness the fall of giants. But what happened next silenced all doubts. The humans didn't mock, they didn't demand tribute, and they didn't turn away. Instead, they approached with something the aliens had almost forgotten existed: kindness. Tiny human ships brought food, water, and medicine. Their engineers, though lacking the vast knowledge of alien science, climbed aboard broken vessels and began repairing them with whatever they had. Where alien technology failed, human creativity shined. They used scrap, improvised tools, and sheer determination to bring systems back online. More importantly, they offered hope. They spoke words of comfort, shared meals, and treated the aliens not as fallen conquerors, but as fellow beings worth saving. For the first time in months, laughter returned to the stranded fleet, not from arrogance, but from relief. The aliens, who once looked down on humans, now began to see something they had never noticed before. Humanity's greatest strength was not in weapons or ships, but in the unshakable will to help others, even when there was nothing to gain. And slowly the impossible happened. The fleet began to come alive again, because humanity had arrived and they refused to let anyone die forgotten in the dark. With humanity's help, the alien fleet slowly found its strength again. Engines that had gone silent roared back to life. Hulls once cracked and leaking were patched, and the haunting stillness of drifting ships was replaced with the sound of activity, of survival. But it wasn't just the repairs that mattered, it was the spirit of the aliens themselves. They had been broken, ready to surrender to despair. Yet the humans, with their strange mix of stubbornness and compassion, reminded them what it meant to fight for life. One by one, the aliens began to believe again. They worked side by side with their unlikely rescuers, learning to trust those they once ignored. The fleet, once a symbol of pride and power, was reborn as something else, a symbol of hope. And when the aliens finally managed to chart a safe course back to their territory, they didn't leave humanity behind. They carried with them a memory that would never be forgotten, the memory of a small young species that stood up when no one else would, that saved thousands with nothing but courage, ingenuity, and kindness. From that day forward, the galaxy would look at humanity differently, not as weak, not as reckless, but as a force unlike any other, a force that could change despair into survival, hopelessness into strength. And for the stranded fleet, their survival was no longer just a story of luck. It became a legend. A legend whispered across the stars that when the mighty had fallen, when no empire came to their aid, it was humanity, the least expected saviors, who lit the way. And that is how humans, against all odds, turned the end of one fleet into the beginning of a new chapter for the galaxy.